Right now on Tech Radio, why the first casualty of war is trust.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. You're welcome to episode 1107. This week, we have information blackouts in the Middle East, Amazon's 13-hour outage, and Ireland's first off-grid data centre, but with a catch. Plus, Rosemary Durkin from Nocomed talks about the challenge of supply chain management with an eye on sustainability.
From TechCentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me is Niall Kitson as always. Niall, I hope you're happy that I'm here because I've literally come from my deathbed. You may hear a touch of cold, man flu, something, a combination of maybe it's both at the same time. I don't know, but I made an exception. I'm not working this week, but I made an exception for you.
Aw. Oh, cheers, bro.
And in my cup, you may notice that it doesn't smell like coffee. It's all lemsippy.
Oh.
Anyway, listen, the only story dominating the news, of course, is what is happening in the Middle East with Iran and the US war. But it's turning out to be very interesting from a tech point of view. Tell me more.
It is, yeah. I mean, I grew up, the first war I paid attention to because I was young/old enough to do so. Was Gulf War One in Kuwait. And it was the first kind of big television war. Like you could tune into Sky News and it could be 24-hour coverage. Like you could come home after school and you could watch what was happening in Kuwait. And that was fascinating to my teachers who were of a generation where you had to wait for the newspapers to get their information. We got rolling coverage, which was new and exciting at the time. Then we sort of progressed to 24-hour news coverage plus citizen journalism, on the ground reporting, which just became the norm. And now we're in this really weird period where the platforms that we had grown used to consulting have, in some cases, gone completely dark. I mean, in Israel, it is illegal to actually show explosions and their aftermath. So you cannot show a missile dropping and the damage that it has done. Can't do it, right? Which means that, the US will adhere to that sort of policy as well, which is why, as of today, the 12th of March, we still don't have, a reasonably trustworthy verification of American and Israeli casualties. This information is being withheld from the public. And if you go to social media, in particular X, which of course we know is the most Trump-friendly of the social platforms, except for Truth Social, actually.
Well,
because it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You will find that an awful lot of what's posted up there is, partisan, or more often than not, AI generated. So you will see, explosion directly from Tel Aviv. You're not going to believe how this looks. And straight away, it's community noted as being AI generated. And very often, because the footage posted is in poor resolution, it's good enough to get by that initial, tier of skepticism. Good enough or bad enough to be accepted. And then you go into the thing and you find there's a community note, or people are asking Grok, is this real? And Grok saying, no, it's not. To the extent that Grok itself has been restricted to actual paying users of X, which is kind of interesting because for the first couple of weeks, it was a case of something happened and somebody would go, Grok, is this true? To almost comical effect, really. I mean, people just asking the most basic things. So one imagines that the cost of compute for Grok just went off the scale. So now we have a situation where Grok will only reply to paying subscribers. Kind of makes sense on one level. On another, you could argue that this is a form of censorship, that, people are trying to get, verified information. They're trying to get information that is accurate, and it's not happening. So that's kind of a very interesting wrinkle in social media, because as we know, Elon Musk's politics are, of course, on the Trump end of the scale, but we're not as sure about his politics when it comes to Israel. And at the moment, there's no divorcing the US position from Israel in theory. As we know, the stated aims they have are totally different, at odds, you might say. On the Trump end, he's saying, look, we ran out of things to bomb. That's it. Like, there are no more targets left. They've no Air Force. They've no Navy. This is it. Like, he's on the verge of declaring victory as we're recording. And on the other side, you have Israel saying this war could go on for a long time.
Yeah.
This is going to run and run. So what do you do? Social media is not helping the case.
Well, I think it's really interesting, and just kind of keep it tech focused more than anything else. I think the thought that I'm going to take away from what you're saying today is really interesting. Okay. It's our parents, when they were going through, the Cuban Missile Crisis, or if they were old enough for World War II, they got their information from newspapers. And then you and I would remember, yes, the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War, or whatever. That was kind of like we literally had journalists embedded and you were watching it live, the bombs dropping, the whole thing. This time round, not so much. Just that on its own is like, very interesting. Nice point.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at other stories, because we've got a ton of stuff to get through this week. Ireland has got its first self-powered data centre. Now, there's a bit of a catch to this, all right? Basically, we have a problem in Ireland. This is an amazing stat. I always say that, kind of at the moment, about a quarter of the energy that's generated in Ireland goes into data centres. That's amazing. 10 years ago, it was 5%.
Wow.
That's just... When you think about that, like in 10 years, it's gone from 5% to almost 25%. It's unbelievable. However, there's a group called Pure Data Centres Group. They're based in West Dublin. They've opened a new data centre, I should say, in West Dublin. And they have attached to it kind of a microgrid, which is essentially its own power generation. So the data centre is generating its own power. It's not taking power out of the grid, which is amazing. So that's the great thing, right? The catch is that the little power station is being run by gas. So we're still relying on fossil fuel.
See, that's a problem, because I think the EU goal by 2030 is to reduce emissions by 55%. So it's a net non-contributor. We're saving our grid, but we're not doing anything on emissions. That's a problem.
Yeah, it is. They're doing this in the States. This is the first time in Europe that a data center has had its own power supply built into it. So that's good. I think that's good for Ireland to show that we're forward thinking like that. In the States, they're doing these things similar. And we've carried stories how in the States, Microsoft and Meta are building huge data centers, but they're going to have like a mini nuclear power station driving the power for that, which is interesting. But here in Ireland, last year, the Commission for Regulation of Utilities said that data centers can be built, because there's a bit of a moratorium. They went, no more data centers. They're too much. There's problems, whatever. So they took the foot off the brake last December. They said, okay, you can build data centers, but 80% of their annual energy must come from renewable energy sources. So it needs to be driven by water power or wind power or whatever. And I think that's fine. So that's good. Anyway, nice to see that Ireland's leading the world in the world of tech with that. Other stories this week around the world. Australia started the wave. We're talking about it. Loads of other countries in Europe are talking about banning social media for people under 16. The UK, who we know have a reputation for liking to be different, are also being different when it comes to social media ban. Tell me.
Yeah, I thought this would have been a slam dunk. There is momentum around Europe to do it. We're looking to do it here. just a ban for under 16s, that particularly vulnerable time in one's life. And yeah, the UK have said no. Parliamentarians voted 307 to 173 in the House of Lords against a proposed bill that would have been part of the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, apparently, and it was brought forward by a Conservative. So, one would have thought, okay, there's going to be a bit of resistance on here, but I mean, this is a kind of an easy win for everybody. I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you got to try it. And yet this got voted down, and by quite a reasonably comfortable margin, 130 votes. It's not, it's not hair thin. Now, I mean, that's not to say that a ban is, entirely dead, but on its own, I don't know if it's a case of it not being a good look for England, for the UK, or there, being a better way to do it already being looked at, or maybe the feedback from Australia is that, look, just isn't working in its current form. So we got to look at a more technical solution, such as when we were talking to Rena from Chirp a couple of weeks ago.
I think it's interesting. A lot of these legislation things will fail in the Parliament, but it'll fail if there'll be a specific reason or whatever, and then they go back to the drawing board and they sort it out and they come back. So I don't think that it's a case of social media for under 16s is like a dead duck within itself, but I think maybe it's the way that it's being implemented that they're voting against.
Yeah, I mean,
also making news this week. Also making news this week, a new survey from Dundee has been looking at electric cars. And I suppose, we've had this, we've talked about it many, many times. Would you buy an electric car? But here's the question this week. Would you buy a second-hand electric car?
Yeah. Well, apparently the answer is maybe.
Well, the prices, I think the story really is that the prices are starting to get reasonable because, you've got petrol cars, diesel cars, and always the most expensive second-hand car was an electric car. That's changed. Okay. According to the survey, a typical 3-year-old electric car now has an average price of around 28, 29 grand. If you're looking at a second-hand diesel car, 3 years old, you're probably looking at 35, 36. All right. So a second-hand electric car is considerably cheaper than a second-hand diesel car. Now, petrol cars are still the cheapest by a long way, 22 grand or something like that on average for a 3-year-old car. I think the second-hand market is a good sign of where things are going. And especially now we have the war and Iran and we see what's happening to the petrol pump prices. You can see it every time you pass a blinking petrol station these days. But the question is in my head, it's kind of like, would I buy an electric car was one problem now, but would you buy a second-hand electric car? And I would have an additional worry on this, okay? So it's not about buying a second-hand car as part of it. It's like, what problems am I inheriting here? The second thing that would be in my head would be, okay, I would have range anxiety.
Sure.
Not for around Dublin and stuff like that, because I'm just doing local driving. But if I was driving to Kerry or something, I'd be going, ooh. All right. But the other thing is when you're buying a second-hand electric car, what state is the battery in?
Well, that's it, because they lose a little bit of juice every time you use them.
Well, this is it. And I've tried buying second-hand phones, refurbished phones. They're brilliant, but because the batteries are, cased into these phones and can't be changed, I mean, the company says, well, it's got 85% life left in it or we wouldn't sell it. And I've done that, but after 18 months, the phone is useless. Battery's gone.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy a car and have the same problem.
Well, what is it Elon Musk said about Tesla, that it wasn't a car company anymore, it was a battery company, and that he was interested in the charger networks and the batteries because so few other companies were making batteries.
Yeah, true. Anyway, listen, that's it's just interesting to see anyway that the price of cars has come down. I might be in the market for a car later on this year, so we'll see how that goes. I would love to get an electric car. I really would love to get an electric car because, as I say, just driving around town and stuff like that, it's great. My brother-in-law has one. My
Yeah.
brother-in-law has one, and he has it just wired into the house, so he just leaves it charging overnight. He says he never has to worry about it, right? And another
Yeah.
friend of mine has bought an electric car for his wife, and they've installed solar panels in the house. And he says the solar panels are charging the car.
Wow.
It's
that's
like,
nifty.
you know, how can you say no to that? Like, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, other tech stories. Oh, yes. Now, a lot of people listening, of course, to tech radio or in the tech industry. And we have a recommendation for an X account to follow.
Yeah. Now, I was quite skeptical of this account when I came across it. And then I thought, you know what, even if I hate to fall into the right wing trap of, you know, just asking questions. But, you know, if this account is factually incorrect, at least it gets you thinking about what's happening out there in the tech sector. So the account is @TechLayoffLover, and it's basically a list of what's happening in corporate America when it comes to AI adoption and engineering jobs. And, you know, some of the takes on it are quite, I'll just go ahead and say toxic. I mean, I don't like the level of Schadenfreude that's going on, but it is sort of one of the pinned tweets he has on it talks about the value of computer science degree in a university in the States, and in particular the job placement rates from them. Because you remember we did a talk with we did an interview a while back about micro credentials and the value of a computer science degree. It's basically current for 18 months after you leave college. Then your skills just aren't relevant to the workforce. You've got to retrain, or either retrain or, you know, do a micro credential just to keep yourself, you know, up to date. Well, according to this account, a university in 2023 had an 89% placement rate. That's pretty good. That's what you expect in times of talent shortage. 2025, it's down to 19%. Why is that? It's down to the fact that jobs are drying up across the board in the name of efficiency. I mean, in the last 2 weeks alone, we had an announcement from Block, which is, you know, Square, Jack Dorsey's company. Yeah. They let go, I think it was 4,000 staff, mostly engineers. Oracle this week also announced thousands in layoffs. None of them in, you know, the line isn't even, you know, COVID is over, which used to be the line. It was, you know, we oversold, now we have to right size. Now it's, we have to right size, but we've got AI that can deliver all these efficiencies. So we're going to let it. And, you know, the line that we were fed over the last few years of AI is not coming for your job, but somebody who can use AI is, it's total bunkum.
Now it's turning out that AI is going to take a job. Yeah.
It is. And what's worse is that those sort of highly skilled people that have, you know, entered a well-paid job and upskilled within the organization that they joined, or maybe moved around to improve their AI skills, they are having to document and create prompts, recreating their work. So in the same way that workers used to be very upset about offshoring of jobs because they basically were telling people who were taking their work how to do the job, we're now having a case where there isn't even a human on the other end of the funnel anymore. You're just teaching an AI how to do your job. And that's it. That's all there is to it. And do you know who's loving this?
Shareholders.
Shareholders are digging it to high heaven.
Absolutely.
Because,
well, I mean, you know, staff salaries is one of the biggest expenses in a company. I mean, if you can reduce that or get rid of it altogether, why wouldn't you?
Engineers are not cheap. Are not cheap. But when you get to the stage where you can type in a prompt and get the same, you know, output as maybe a team of engineers, well, why would you? Why would you bother taking on a team of engineers? So this is why we're seeing more sort of services companies start up AI practices because they know that their customers are thinking, yeah, AI important. Can't afford the engineers at the moment, but let's see if there's a more cost efficient option.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Okay. The X account, if you want to follow it, is at Tech Layoff Lover. Now, speaking of engineers and AI, engineers are being blamed, and not AI, for Amazon's 13-hour outage. Give me the story.
Now, this is a really interesting follow-up to what we've just been talking about. You might remember during the week, Amazon had a fairly substantial outage. I mean, it was 13 hours where you couldn't make a purchase. Not good. According to Financial Times, an internal document circulated this week put the laid the blame on the Kiro AI coding tool. Now, here's the thing. Financial Times reported that in terms of what developers actually got in their weekly, what's happening in the company email that got sent out, that wasn't mentioned. Any mention of generative AI tools was kind of scrubbed from the official version, and that really has thrown up some interesting points because Amazon started laying off people last year by the thousands, and they're going to lay off more people this year by the thousands. And AI is being touted as, hey, efficiency, because we love it. Now, the official, what we've seen is there have been more outages since these layoffs started happening, right? So the query is, okay, one of these things is not like the other. Are engineers being overworked? Are they not talented enough for the job anymore? Or is AI messing up? This is the problem, or rather, this is the messaging.
Yeah.
Amazon has come out and said, do you know what? It's the people. That's the problem. We have an AI tool, an internal AI tool called Q. And you know what? Yeah, we think this had something to do with something on March 2nd. Again, this is not verified. The official version is it's the humans, it's not the AI. We are seeing more cases of AI being involved in these through back channels, not through the official emails. And Dave Treadwell, who is the VP of e-commerce services at Amazon, came out and he said, look, we haven't figured out the best practices and safeguards. That was his exact words, best practices and safeguards around generative AI. So they're fumbling around looking for, the best way to, inverted commas, do AI.
Yeah.
Until then, they are quite happy to still let people go. It's almost like passing on a document that's half written to a replacement and saying, go forth, you can do the job now.
Yeah.
It's like half the information isn't there. They haven't figured it out themselves yet. On a technical level, I mean, they might be able to do things, but on a sort of a could we, should we level, they just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. Bananas. It is interesting how they're getting AI to do so much work. They don't have the safeguards fully in place. And then when it goes wrong, they're blaming the engineers. It's like, Other news this week, Google Play is becoming more Apple-like. And I always give about Apple in the walled garden and stuff like that. But in this case, I actually think it's a good idea. Basically, Google Play has always been it's been freer. It's been a little bit more open. They've always had more apps, more interesting apps. If you need a solution for something, you would more likely find on Google Play than you would because it's hard enough to get into the Apple ecosystem as an app developer. However, from late this year, Google Play are tightening down, and now you must be a registered developer in order to be able to post an app. So that involves giving government-issued ID, so a driver's license or a passport or something like that. You have to supply them with a telephone number, which I think has to be verified, an address, all those things they look forward to. DUNS number if you're a company. I've been through the process. It's not hard, but it's just a pain in the butt, that kind of stuff. But you're verifying yourself as, look, here, I'm a real person and this is my official ID and I'm very much tied to this particular thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's a good thing because a lot of apps can have spyware in it, or there can be fraud uses to those kind of apps. And the way that they do it is they jump on Google Play, they register as a developer, they put the thing on, and then they just scarper. Do you know what I mean? And whoever downloads the app downloads the app. Apple say that, or say not Apple, but Google Play say, and this is where I am happy, is that it doesn't mean an end to side loading on Android devices. So if you want to install an app from outside the Play Store, you'll still be able to do that. Again, it's a bit of a process and you've got to be a bit informed on how to do these things. But you and I, Niall, fortunately are in that group. So we'll be able to play around with stuff that's not approved. Anyway, just interested to see that Google Play are doing that. Last story for this week then, Anthropic going to court. And they're taking on like the biggest person they could possibly take on.
A story that we kind of missed last week because it broke just as we were releasing the show. The US government has pulled Claude and Anthropic from its systems, right? The US government, particularly the Department of Defense, was using Claude. It isn't anymore. The Department of Defense ripped it out and OpenAI stepped in and said, hey, we can do that job. And what is that particular job? Well, it was potentially developing autonomous weapons and being used in surveillance. Two things that Anthropic said, no, we're not interested in having our models used for. The Department of Defense said, well, okay, we're not going to use you. Anthropic said, or use you or, in anything else, to which Anthropic said, well, hang on, like we were using our First Amendment rights here. We said that these are things that we don't stand for. And you have decided to do this. So as a result, Anthropic is taking the US government to court, saying, okay, you have effectively blacklisted us from government contracts for using our First Amendment rights. Now, the US government came out and it did not mince its words. It called Anthropic woke and radical left, which are the two words that it just sort of stamps on everything. Really, 3 words they stamp on everything. If you like your coffee with extra cream and you deliver someone black coffee, well, that black coffee is just woke and radical left.
Radical left. Yeah, there you go. All right, interesting. Listen, let's leave the news there for this week. Niall, as always, thanks for giving us the update and your insights.
This is Tech Radio from TechCentral.ie. Get every episode of Tech Radio by clicking follow on your podcast player right now.
Healthcare contributes about 5% of all global carbon emissions, which poses a critical environmental and global health challenge. It's also a multi-billion euro problem looking for a digital solution. So how does healthcare and life sciences figure out which parts of the supply chain are adhering to international standards and which don't? One company who's making it their mission to solve this problem is Nocomed. They're the product of Dogpatch Labs Founders Talent Accelerator, and their CEO, Rosemary Durkin, had a chat with Niall Kitson.
Rosemary, I suppose in talking about Nocomed, we've got a little bit of background to sift through in terms of your own founder's journey to date. So tell us a little bit about, for want of a better expression, where you came from.
Sure. So my background is in life sciences and healthcare. I spent about 25, probably more years in the sector, and worked with organisations, actually started in the food industry in the beginning, and then moved to organisations such as IBEC and Enterprise Ireland, but always worked in life sciences, so medical devices and pharmaceuticals. Then moved into private healthcare. And after that, I worked as a consultant with medtech and pharma companies and healthcare organisations. And kind of came to a point in my life where I really wanted to can I do something for myself and build a tech company, but within the sector. It's just been a very enjoyable experience working within the sector, particularly on the medtech and pharma side, and then obviously on the service side and the healthcare providing. So I really wanted, that's my background, and I kind of wanted to use that background and my knowledge and insights and I suppose connections as well, because Ireland is a great place to start a business in this sector.
I suppose in looking at then what problems to focus on, having so much experience to draw upon, I imagine you've come across lots of things in the past and got, "Do you know, I know how to fix this. I know how to fix this. Just let me at it." Was this sort of a similar experience for you?
Yeah, I think in the past I did come across things and said, that's definitely, I know how to do that. And then I left it. And then like 5 years later, somebody else would have done it. And then you kind of kick yourself and go, why didn't I do that? So it was definitely a few experiences of that. And then it was a really personal timing for me. Just life, children, just being busy. And I kind of didn't find the right time. And I felt, it was more of a timing than an idea. It was really, how do I get the two aligned? So that was where my head was at.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed sort of talking to women founders in the past, that it is finding the right time to re-enter business. I mean, did you have any particular benchmarks for yourself, or was it a case of you sat down and went, do you know what, there's enough going on that will kind of self-manage. I can do something for myself now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really, there's just so much going on when you have a young family. And then my husband traveled internationally because in life sciences, there is a lot of international work, obviously. And so it's just trying to find the time where maybe the family didn't need me as much. Like I always worked, but it was just like doing a startup is like raising another family. So it's a bit of a balance. So it really was just trying to find that timing. And then I did come a stage in my life where I just kind of thought, if I don't do this, I'm never going to do this. And that's really, I came to that crossroads myself. So I actually had a chat with the family and set them down and said, I really want to do this. And of course they were all thrilled and happy for me to do it. And it's a different thing when you go and do it. It's, they're going, what do you mean you're going doing that? But, they are very supportive, but it definitely was a crossroads where I felt, if I don't do this now, I'm really going to regret it. So I just had to go and do it.
Just before we jump into the nuts and bolts of the product, I mean, having that experience in public and private sectors, it must have given you a really good primer for understanding how to navigate some of the bodies that you've worked with already, because you've worked with Enterprise Ireland, you've worked with Dogpatch Labs. Was that a layer of fear that you didn't have going into the project?
Yes, I did. I definitely knew the system, particularly having spent so much time with Enterprise Ireland in life sciences. So I spent time there in the commercialization of research from life sciences. I also spent time there with established companies within Enterprise Ireland. So I had a great insight of where the market was kind of going to, trends, also how to navigate, I suppose, funding and understanding what Enterprise Ireland's goals were. And obviously they want to see people employed in Ireland, as do we, and also they want to see exports. So I had a good understanding that. And I suppose I didn't have a fear either, because I understood the rules of the game, and I agree with them. So it wasn't difficult for me, I suppose, to get my head around that. So in that respect, the funding part was relatively easy because I suppose I understood the guidelines. And then from other, like the private aspect, then understanding, obviously business have commercial and you have to generate sales and you have to have a product that fits the marketplace and you have to expand internationally eventually. So all of those things did align. So I suppose looking back on my CV, I probably feel like everything I've done has got me to this position, has got me here. And there was no bad job that I took or no role that I regret, because everything has got me to here. And I think that's kind of, I suppose looking back, it's definitely obvious when I'm sitting in meetings. There are certain parts of my career that are helping me more than others in certain situations. So everything has been, I suppose, somewhat a blessing to get me here, really.
I think sales seems to be the biggest hurdle that a lot of founders deal with, in particular, because the ideas may be very solid, but the idea of getting in front of investors or getting in front of customers seems to be a very different skill set. How did you navigate that? Yeah,
so really, I suppose, when with the experience, I really didn't want to build anything without customers by my side. And so basically in the beginning, I reached out to about 30 odd companies to try and find the idea actually in the first place. So I didn't really want to go with my own idea because I felt like that could take 20 years to commercialize. So I wanted to see where the marketplace was. So we reached out and did lots of customer discovery work and tried to figure out where their challenges were. So I asked the question, well, where do you think the challenges are going to be in the sector in the next 5 to 10 years? And sustainability ranked very highly. So then delved a bit deeper into that and asked them, okay, so what exactly is in sustainability is your challenge? And a lot of it was around the lack of understanding sustainability, the pressure from customers in healthcare to try and get the data together, and the understanding how to reduce, carbon emissions across very complex supply chains such as pharma and medtech. And so these were the challenges and issues. So we just kind of said, okay, well, and then went back to them and said, okay, so what if we built a sustainability platform just specifically for the sector? Would that take some of the fear out of it for you? And the answer was yes. So we said, okay, well, we took a punt on that. And then we built the platform around 3 companies' data. One of the companies based in Ireland, 2 in the UK. And we basically, I suppose that gave us kind of confidence that we were on the right track because companies were giving us their data. And you don't give commercial data to quite easily. So they gave us their data under NDAs and we built the platform around that. So our philosophy and I suppose the strategy is we only build with clients. We don't build ahead of clients because the sector moves relatively slowly than some say because it's highly regulated than other sectors. So we, I suppose, don't really want to be building something that they may never use. So linking that to sales means you're building very good relationships with customers. You're building what they need, and then you're also, piloting on larger projects that they would need in the future. So as long as we're doing it with our customers or potential customers, then I'm comfortable there's something there at the end of it.
So you've got that constant feedback loop as well, and understanding what people are quite happy to give you. But I suppose that past experience with regulation as well must really have been sort of not feeling as intimidating or limiting as some industries.
Yeah, definitely. So just understanding it, it's easier to have those conversations because you understand where the companies are coming from. And you understand the hurdles they have to jump to get their products onto the marketplace. And you understand that they can't switch out materials or packaging without telling the regulators. You understand all that. So it's a much easier conversation as was building trust and we're kind of speaking off the same page. So that definitely helps. And then on our board, we have our chair is actually from the Quality Regulatory MedTech and Pharma space as well. So that really, really helps guide us on future regulations coming down for the sector in sustainability. So yeah, it's just really it's really important to understand where your customer is coming from and the challenge they're experiencing internally and externally with their customers. So yeah, it does help to bring that insight along for sure.
So let's talk about Nocomed in general and how it actually works for people. Yeah. Starting with a good company name, good product name. Tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. So we basically, the name Nocomed is no carbon dioxide emissions or no carbon emissions in med as in health tech sector. So that's where we came from the name. We wanted something to show that we were very sector specific. So basically, so we built the platform to allow the sector, be it, pharma companies and medical device companies or healthcare organizations, to actually reduce their carbon emissions. So measure and reduce their carbon emissions and report to whoever they need to report to. So, and it's as simple as that. That's what the platform does. And basically, it's the reason we built that platform was healthcare organizations globally are asking their suppliers to provide carbon reduction plans or carbon reduction strategies in order to continue to tender. And that's legally binding in the UK currently. And we can see many more healthcare organizations and systems globally asking customers to do this. So we've automated this so they can actually take their carbon emissions, they can measure them by automation, and they can basically report on them and they can reduce them, put a plan in place to reduce. And we're actually currently building out a carbon reduction simulator, for a term of a better word, so companies can actually plug their own information in and see a cost benefit analysis and a carbon benefit analysis of what they're doing.
In conversations that I've had with large organizations in the past, sustainability is often treated as a nice to have instead of a must have. In terms of creating an automated solution, has that removed a lot of the fear?
Well, it's not a nice to have anymore in the sector. I suppose that's the thing. It's because customers are asking for it, and it's no longer a nice to have. So it's actually a must have, and particularly if you can no longer tender to large organisations such as the NHS or the healthcare systems within the Nordics or across Europe. So it's moved very quickly to a must have. But there's also other benefits that sustainability brings. Like it brings cost reduction because you're pulling the waste out of your business. So it really is like, if you view sustainability like lean with green lenses, and that's what it is, you're looking at your efficiencies within your business through a green lens. So not alone are you pulling waste out of your system, but you're also decreasing your carbon emissions. So it's a win-win from that perspective. So you're reducing the waste, which means you're reducing costs, and you're also increasing your efficiencies, and you're also building competitive advantage because your customers see you doing the right thing, and you're building a sustainable business, not just in reducing your carbon emissions, but actually strengthening your business. So it's going to be here in the next 10 or 15 years.
One of the interesting things about starting a medtech business in Ireland is that, pharma is it's our largest industry sector at the moment.
Huge export.
So I guess that makes Ireland a pretty good, again, for want of a better term, laboratory to try a product like this. Is that something that was front of mind when you started?
Yeah, for sure. Because the network, so we've huge, obviously we've a huge medtech cluster in Ireland, mainly in Galway, but actually there's a lot of Cork and Dublin companies there as well. And pharma obviously is huge. So that was definitely a big benefit to anyone starting a life science company in Ireland. And the network is, it's fairly well, everyone's fairly well networked. We know each other because Ireland is small. So, we, the sector tends to gone to college together or work together, and it's that small, but it punches way above its weight. So from that perspective, it's good that you can reach out and get access to people to talk about, future planning or potential, challenges they may be having, or even just to talk to them about their sustainability journey. So it's made life a lot easier for a startup, for sure, for us to go out and do that and talk to people. And in fairness to the sector, they've been very generous with their time, I would say, considering how busy they are. They always will take a call or, reply to an email. And that's just invaluable, really, to any startup. So, yeah, I have to say it has been a huge advantage to us.
I think that people often talk up that sense of community is so important. We're finding it in RDI Hub out in Kerry. Of course, we know all about Silicon Docs as well. And the availability of that talent without sort of feeling antagonistic about what somebody else is doing.
Sure.
It certainly seems to be working well in medtech. So, it's a large sector. It's an international sector. You've got to be looking at international markets, are you?
Yeah, we are. And they're looking at us. So, which is great because, again, the sector is actually quite small on a global scale. So, I think there's something like 25,000 life science companies or something in the world. Like, it's not huge. It's doable. So, yes, we've had interest from the Nordics. We've had ventures from Canada. And obviously we're looking at the UK because we have our first product is actually helping NHS suppliers to pull together their data that needs the need for tendering under sustainability. So, yeah, no, for sure we are looking internationally. Europe is definitely a place where sustainability is taken seriously by companies. And in the last couple of weeks, so we've definitely seen an increased interest in Canada, where the healthcare system there is keen to move ahead on reducing the carbon emissions, which means their suppliers are keen to move ahead to reduce their carbon emissions. So, yeah, for sure, it's an international product, and we look forward to that. We're already engaging with Enterprise Ireland Overseas Office, so the UK, the Nordics, and even the Middle East, so and the US. So we have early conversations with some of those offices, just keeping an eye on what things are happening, so we can be ready for any major changes.
And that was CEO of Nocomed, Rosemary Durkin, chatting with Niall Kitson. You can find out more about them at nocomed.com. Link, as always, in the show notes for you.
This is Tech Radio.
That's almost it for our show this week. A couple of other stories we didn't get to chat about but are online. What have we got now?
Sure, we have Marie Boran on the links between AI relationships and marketing, Deirdre McArdle on the right to remote work, and Jason Walsh on the failure of wearable technology.
That was a brilliant article by Marie on the AI relationships, by the way. Those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show. In the meantime, please do share our podcast with a friend who's into tech and gadgets. Just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until next week, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, have a great weekend.
Tech Radio is produced by deskpod.io. From me, Artemis, goodbye.